Hello, hello! Welcome to Sprout Sessions, everyone. I'm Vera Flores, and I work in community and brand advocacy here at Sprout. I'm thrilled to be moderating this session today, and it's sure to be a great one. Our goal with Sprout Sessions is to bring our industry together and arm you with insights to deepen your strategy and gain new perspectives on topics that are truly relevant to your brand's bottom line. We hope you can take away some actionable tips on how to apply these best practices to your social strategy, as well as inspirations for ways to grow. We'll jump into the content in just a minute, but first, let's go over a few housekeeping items. These sessions will be recorded and you can access them immediately following the presentation on our YouTube page. If you need to step out or head out early, don't worry. You'll be able to access everything after the session. Get social with it. We encourage all of you to engage with us and your fellow professionals on social. Tweet at Sprout Social or use the hashtag Sprout Sessions to ask questions, share your favorite bits of content, or just follow along with the conversation. Lastly, we'll have a Q&A at the end of this presentation. Feel free to ask questions throughout the session by using the chat box to the right of the screen. Now let's get this session started. Allow me to pass it over to Coop Elias of the Carolina Hurricanes to introduce themselves.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today as we talk about running social media during high-profile events. While my focus may be on game day engagement, the process that I use can be applied across many other live settings outside of a sporting event, including press conferences and product launches, to name a couple examples. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at the end, whether it's something specific to my experience in sports or the live event process that I'm laying out for you today. Just to give you a little bit of background on me, I've been with the Carolina Hurricanes going into, since 2010. So quite a few seasons here with the team, and started off in a general marketing coordinator role when social media wasn't even listed as part of the job description, but it was something that I started doing when I came in, and then it's now grown to where I'm our manager of digital and social marketing. And as part of that role, I'm now overseeing a full-time social media coordinator. So we now have that dedicated role and continue to grow our digital department. And we really have 3 people now that are involved in social media on a day-to-day basis here for the team. As part of this position, I do work with some of our other digital marketing efforts, like email, our search and display, things like that. But again, my primary focus has been really on the strategy and the execution of our social media. That includes covering our practices and also coverage during games, which is what we're going to focus on today. So when I'm preparing to cover a high-profile event, I always consider strategy, content, and workflows. I think it's important to have a strategy in place for each platform to have an effective execution once everything gets underway. Planning for an event usually requires a strategy that's different from the day-to-day strategy you may already have in place. At least it definitely looks different for us. If writing out a strategy plan for a social channel is something that's new to you, I would say just start by answering the who, what, when, where, why, and how questions. Who is the audience that you're trying to reach with that platform? What is the platform, and how is it used? When and where will you create the content for it? Why does this platform make sense for your specific event? How will your strategy for that platform be managed? Given the nature of the social media landscape, there's always a need to reevaluate and tweak strategies as platform capabilities shift. When Instagram Stories launched, if we had just acknowledged it without reshaping our strategy for Instagram as a whole, it's likely we wouldn't have adopted it on the fly as a new season was starting. As social media marketers, we have a lot of options at our fingertips for advanced content creation and scheduling. In a live event setting, scheduling posts might not always make or might not always be feasible, but drafting content is definitely key to make sure you don't fall behind and that you retain the flexibility to read and react as the live event dictates. Prepping content isn't the only way, though, that I've found I can increase my efficiency in covering a high-profile event. In place allow me to delegate to a growing game night staff and manage a growing landscape of opportunities to reach a larger audience. I do have some approval steps in place to ensure we're putting out a consistent message, but requiring too many approvals can ultimately lead to less real-time engagement. So let's dive deeper into what a multi-platform strategy means and what it looks like for a game day. Again, the examples I'm giving might be specific to a sports scenario, but the elements of the strategy are applicable across a wide spectrum of industries and brands. The first thing to do here is identify all of the existing social platforms that you're on in non-event settings. Once you have that listed out and know what options you have to use, I like to start by identifying the unique features that we take advantage of. Sometimes it's a differentiating factor, and other times it's just a way to identify how platforms can share certain aspects of the strategy we're outlining. Some of the main areas that I'll look at include attached media formats, from pictures to videos to GIFs. One type of media usually isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. In addition to the type of media, you have to consider file sizes, video length, and other limitations that exist. I like to be aware of those prior to the event so that I don't end up with produced media that I can't use. I also use that information to help direct our production team on what will perform best. For example, video seeing the greatest reach on Facebook and how their process for exporting the media can be the most efficient. Live capabilities. This is an area that used to be fairly limited. If we were going to live stream, it was going on Periscope. Now we're sometimes finding ourselves in the position of deciding which platform we want to go live on. I don't see any reason live streaming won't continue to grow, so I think it will continue to be a priority for us when we're developing our strategies, because it definitely can require more resources. User-generated content, whether it's from attendees at an event or people who are viewing the event. Collecting UGC is a pretty standard tactic. It might be possible to gather UGC from a platform like Snapchat, but we'll prioritize Twitter and Instagram as the places for those calls to action because API access and things like that allow for easier collection and display on our end. But if we know that we want to reach our Snapchat demo and with a specific UGC campaign, we'll just adapt the strategy for however the execution on our end needs to change because of how Snapchat is going to work. And then customer service. We place an emphasis on our social media channels functioning as a customer service tool. So identifying the strategy of how to deal with a Twitter question or complaint compared to something that gets posted in the comment of an Instagram post is definitely important to us. We always look for ways to give our followers a different experience from one platform to another, but there are definitely certain pieces of content that you'll want to reach as much of your potential audience as possible. We know there are some things like a final score post that will always be used across the board. It's with the unexpected moments that we have to make a crossover content judgment call on the fly. One of those came in our final game of the season when Brian Bickle, who had announced his retirement a few days prior after being diagnosed with MS earlier in the season, scored a goal in the shootout. It was an easy call to use this as crossover content because it was one of the most memorable game night moments from the entire season. But I still had to make decisions about what the copy was going to look like, what attached media I was going to use for each platform. In this case, I decided to keep it consistent and thought it worked well, but that's definitely not always the case. Snarky copy might perform well on Twitter, but you could see backlash on Facebook for that same copy paired with the exact same media. Your strategy is not complete until you answer the question, how are we going to execute this plan? A game night staff of 2 was sufficient several years ago when Twitter, Facebook, and a little bit of Instagram were our only channels in use. But when we are wanting to add Snapchat, Instagram stories, live video, as well as increase our existing content output, we had to ask for a larger staff for everything to be able to make the cut. Hardware and software needs, those differ for everyone, and a lot of it will depend on your personal preference, but make sure you consider that as part of the plan. This was a picture taken at the NHL draft this summer when I was responsible for capturing the in-person social content. We planned to live stream each pick's press conference using my phone and a tripod that I had for it. I thought I'd be able to then tweet quotes using an iPad. I immediately ran into issues, though, because I hadn't thought about how my inability to type quickly on an iPad, and also not being able to capture content then for our stories. So luckily, one of our video staffers ended up letting me use his phone to do the live streams, and then in this case, that is showing where we have the live stream going on, and at the same time, I was able to be capturing that content for Snapchat and our Instagram story. And then for me, it's imperative that I have a publishing tool with mobile capabilities, because there are many times that I can't be stationary during a high-profile event. Finally, make sure you account for all the time that it takes to do the publishing and engagement in your plan. I almost always underestimate that, and with cutting something out because I'm out of time and have to move on to the next part of the plan. One way that I have found to manage my time that it takes to cover a live event is to prep as much as I can. The key with prepping content is to leave myself the flexibility, though, to adapt to the unexpected and not box myself in. My drafted posts on a game night vary from complete messages, like a team store promo that can be published with a single click once the right time comes, maybe during intermission, to a goal scored template that needs details inserted as they occur to assist with more real-time delivery. If you know the type of photo or video you're hoping to capture for a specific moment, why not take advantage of having more time to write your copy? If you aren't able to capture what you were hoping, or you're stuck with something different at that time, you can always just discard the draft. When I do sit down during a game to coordinate our publishing efforts, I always have a media guide and game notes there with me. I hate wasting time having to go search the internet for information that I could have clarified ahead of time. Having different account handles identified that I know I'm going to use is another time saver. For example, we have a notable pregame hurricane warning siren sounder every night, and so going ahead and identifying that person's official handle is a good way. It's just something that I don't need to take the time to actually do once I get the picture. I know it's going to happen. I know who it is ahead of time. So go ahead and do that, and then that way I make sure that I get them tagged as well, and they're likely to retweet that or share that on their accounts. Having URLs bookmarked, shortened ahead of time, that's also something that speeds things up and definitely helps with my mobile publishing. Coordinating with our PR team helps maximize the exposure for our account. Our press releases are first posted on social media, then emailed to their distribution list. We've had several player announcements that are planned to be announced during a live event. And like, for example, when we signed Justin Williams as a free agent this summer, that happened while our prospects game was taking place, an event where our fans are here at the arena. I think that the Obama White House is another good example of an account that did an excellent job preparing for a social media push in conjunction with live speeches. They took advantage of the opportunity to post in a way that differentiated their official presence from corresponding media coverage. Not only did they identify key quotes that they were going to post, but they built out graphics that added extra context for their followers. So once we've got the strategy, once we have a good idea about content and have prepped what we can, then the next thing after that is that I assign priority-based workflows. And again, what that means is as the team continues to grow, then I have to figure out who is going to be able to handle some of those different capabilities or new strategies that we're going to implement. Delegation is really important when it comes to things like that because I have to put some responsibilities in the hands of other people to make sure that they get done or make sure that it gets done in real time. We have the ability using Sprout to assign different permissions for our accounts. I can give our intern, for example, full publishing permission, maybe on our mascot account, but then they have to get approval for anything that would be posted to the main account. I can, one thing that we started doing was giving them the ability to reply because they could go in and take care of some questions that they knew the answer to instead of having to task everything up to someone else. Multimedia is an area that we definitely work with another department the most. We have our in-house video production department, and we've got procedures that we establish with them to make sure that, one, they're cutting content quickly for us, but two, that it's easily accessible. We also like to have somebody that's just keeping an eye on, the broadcast feed or all of our different camera angles that we have available in the arena, just watching for some of those viral moments that maybe wouldn't be seen otherwise. Engagement. As I was saying before, that is definitely an area where I like to get other people involved on my team because we put a real emphasis on the engagement that we do with our fans. And that's not just liking and retweeting, but that's commenting on Instagram photos and thanking fans for coming out to a game. It's wishing a fan happy birthday because they came out that night, or it might be reaching out to them and asking for their specific seat information so that we can go follow up with them or maybe take a prize to them. We like to have that two-way communication with our fan base. It definitely a better second screen experience. We do sometimes amplify some of our influential followers, but again, we think customer service is extremely important during a high-profile event or a live event, because if it goes without being handled, then it has the chance for that to become something that goes viral. Our former VP of marketing here, Doug Worf, he said to me, this was very early on when I started working here, he said, we need to be talking with, not at, our fans, referring to on social media. That he didn't ever want our accounts to just turn into a megaphone, just to push out information, but wanted to really encourage me that we would always look at it as that a place to have that two-way communication. This is in Charlotte, North Carolina, where NASCAR has their offices. and I got to tour it one time, and this blew me away. They've got this whole room that they built out that they call their Fan and Media Engagement Center. And it's just, all these screens where they can have up the live action, different reporting tools, their real-time engagement with followers. And they'll have staff sitting in there, during every race, and to do the different type of engagement. Again, one person might be more on the customer service side. One person might be looking more for, content that's shareable. And then, communication is going to be huge when you're looking at these workflows. We have, as our team continues to grow, again, it becomes more challenging, but more imperative too, that we have good ways to be able to communicate with each other about the content that we have available, about things that we may be doing that could affect someone else's work that night. So things like Slack, again, Dropbox, anything like that where you can share content, ask for feedback, we've found to be very useful. So just kind of recapping here, some takeaways for you. The first thing is identify that multi-platform strategy. Without a strategy in place, you're not going to end up doing it. You might have really good intentions, but you're not going to actually be able to execute it like you're hoping to. Go ahead and prep as much content as you can. I love to have, on game nights when I had more things prepped, I actually feel like I have the opportunity to be more creative, because I'm not having to think as much during the event about these things that have to be posted or that are very specific, and that frees up time to work more on that creative side. Assign priority-based workflows. Utilize the teams that you have in place, and make sure that everyone has a role and that those roles are really complementing each other. Ask for and provide team feedback. We like to sit down after an event, after a game night, and talk amongst ourselves about what type of content we captured that night, watch our Snapchat story from that night, and give each other feedback. And then the most important thing is just remain agile and adapt. Live events are unpredictable. That's what makes it fun, but it's also what makes it more challenging. And you just have to be able to roll with the punches and adapt to whatever the event throws your way. With that, I will turn it back over so that we can jump into some Q&A. But again, thank you all very much for joining me today to talk about this, and feel free to get in touch with me on Twitter if you want to talk any more about anything that was in the presentation today.
Awesome. Thank you, Coop. There's definitely a lot of prep work that goes into game day, so woof. You're welcome to stick around for the next 10 minutes to ask any questions you have, and remember, you'll be able to access the recording of this session following the completion of the Q&A. So let's get to our first question. Coop, this is a question from the YouTube chat from Megan. How do your workflow processes and job duties change during off-season?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think sometimes people think that we just basically don't work in the off season. It's like one big long vacation for us. But the way I look at it is that's really when we're focusing more on the strategy part. So again, yeah, we will go through and adapt the strategy some during the season, but we'll spend more time immediately following a season. We'll be looking back at reviewing the previous, what we previously did and what performed best, but then spending the majority of the time leading up to the start of the next season to to start reshaping the strategy. Sometimes if we think it worked well, we'll take what we did and just look at kind of making some tweaks or building on that. Other times we almost completely scrap the previous season strategy and just say, okay, let's just rethink what this platform is going to be like for us. That's kind of the position that we're in right now with our Snapchat stories. We actually, I thought going into last season, because of Instagram stories being newer, that the weaker of the two. And then we ended up feeling really good about the direction that our Instagram stories went in. And we actually had more of a focus with our strategy there. And I think our Snapchat strategy, game night strategy, was honestly just kind of a little bit too all over the place. So we've got to look at reshaping that one for sure.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, it's really important to spend some time to review and be thoughtful about your strategy and take the time to look back at how things performed. So I know you talked about delegating and processes before. So we have a question from Nick from YouTube. With delegating tasks, do you have a person assigned to creating content and a separate person that handles engagement per platform? Can you expand a little bit on your preferred processes?
Yeah, definitely. We don't necessarily have a separate person. Everybody on our team is involved in some of the content creation. We just need it to be that way because of needing to be in so many different places at one time. But we will have dedicated people for the engagement side of things. So, you know, I don't have time myself really during a game to jump in and start engaging with our fans on Instagram. So that's something that, you know, I definitely assign to one of the other people on the staff. And that's something where I can give them, I feel comfortable giving them full control or full abilities to go in and be able to comment and engage and like things that our fans are posting.
Awesome, great feedback. Similarly, on the topic of delegating, do you have any tips or best practices if delegating isn't an option? Goodwill Detroit asks, if you're a small team or a one-man show, how do you handle all that responsibility? Do you have any tips or best practices for that?
Yeah, sure. You know, you still need to do all those different aspects. Again, we're talking about high-profile live events, so the content creation in real time has to be the priority. But one thing that I'll sometimes do if I don't have a dedicated person going through and reviewing things is I'll just kind of skim quickly through incoming messages and look for anything that, you know, really stands out that or isn't, you know, something that is more time sensitive. And then things that aren't time sensitive can definitely wait until the event ends. And then that's when we'll go back and start jumping in more to the engagement and to the customer service side of things. And I think that it's good to do engagement during an event, but I think that it's also great to engage with your followers following the event because it just extends the life essentially of that event.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have time for one last question, and this is from Isaac, and they ask, what's an example of one of your best in-game moments on social, a time where everything came together perfectly?
That is a good question. I'm trying to think of one that specifically stands out. You know, I do think that I put it in there. I was trying to think of something different, but the Brian Bickle moments, it was something that we didn't have any kind of a heads up. I said that about coordinating with our PR team. That was something where just he kind of let that slip to the media, or decided that he was just going to go ahead and say it to a member of the media. And so then the story was out there. And we didn't really have time to coordinate with our PR team very much on what that was going to look like from an in-game standpoint, because we did have a home game prior to that final game, which was on the road. But we definitely not only did we put out pre-produced graphics and media that ran in conjunction with things that we were showing in the arena, but then posting out some of the actual footage of the response from inside the arena, so fans that weren't there attending were able to still kind of go in and feel that energy, that emotion, and feel like they were part of it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. So it looks like our time has come to an end. On behalf of Sprout, we want to thank all of you for attending this session. And again, thank you to Coop for your time. Keep your eyes peeled. We're going to compile some of the major takeaways from this session and share it with all of you. So feel free to continue the conversation on social media using the hashtag #SproutSessions, or reach out to Coop on Twitter. From all of us at Sprout, have a great summer. Thanks.